Hey everyone, welcome to another Diagnose Brave video. I'm your host Bethany, and I'm going to be off screen for this video and possibly a few others because just to summarize from the last video, I tried recording in front of the window. The lighting wasn't working. I tried it again today and still couldn't get it. So I decided instead of it being me in the video with a blinding light behind me, it'd be better just to put the video on the forest preserve that I was trying to capture in the first place, and we'll work on the technical part later. With that being said, today is going to be a part one video series of I'm not sure how many, but last video I discussed how my mom was recently diagnosed with breast cancer, and I thought the situation could be an opportunity to do some videos talking about her as the patient, me as the caregiver, kind of the summary of what we're going through, the testing and everything like that. Not because I'm trying to give medical treatment advice, but just to try to share with more information. For me personally, as far as the term breast cancer, I had the pink ribbon in my head. I thought there were, one or two different kinds. I didn't really have a lot of experience with it. So already within the first 2 weeks, I've gained so much knowledge. And then in talking to people, finding out how so many people know people that have gone through the struggle of breast cancer. And then that also coinciding with it's October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I thought I need to do some videos on it. So I didn't want to just do one or two really big, long videos going through the whole process. So I thought to just try to take like little snapshot parts along the way. And that's what I'm going to roll out with these videos. So to start things off, my mom recently had her annual mammogram, and it came back as questionable because the doctor said that there was dense breast tissue, and so they would have to do something called a diagnostic mammogram. And they were able to get that scheduled within a few days. And directly after the test, they let her know that they did notice a calcification nodule. And so they suggest doing a biopsy to find out whether it was benign or not. And within a few days, they were able to get her in for the biopsy. I was really impressed with the timetable and how they were being proactive with it. And right before the biopsy, that's when she kind of filled me in on what was going on and asked me to go with her. And I was really glad that I was able to have the time and space to be able to be that support for her. Because as I realized that day, waiting for them to take her back for the biopsy, when you're newly introduced to these tests and procedures and terms and doctor's appointments, just that in itself can be overwhelming for somebody. And you can experience a bunch of different emotions, anxiety, for example. But having somebody with you during those visits, even just to, put a reassuring hand on your shoulder and just be like, hey, we need to do this so that we have more information to know what the next steps are, I think can be really comforting for someone. And so she went and had the biopsy done. They gave us the discharge paperwork, and then the nurses kind of were explaining things that she could do to help ease the discomfort. And that's where having another person as a second set of ears during those moments is really beneficial, because here she just got done with the biopsy. She's uncomfortable, and she's kind of all over the place with thoughts that she's having about her experience. And the nurses are being great by sharing, like, for example, oh, make sure to keep the ice pack on 20 minutes off, kind of as much as you can, because it'll help not only with the discomfort, but it'll help minimize the bruising that can occur. And subsequently, when we got home, because she had, the paperwork after the biopsy, and she had notes written down, and it was kind of like, how long am I supposed to do the ice pack? How does that really work out? So it was really great that I was able to be there to kind of help her gather that information so that she could recover from it the best she can. Because in her case, not only did they want, the icing, but, you weren't really supposed to lift much with the arm that was associated to where they did the biopsy. So, again, here's somebody who's like, oh, I need to have this test done. Okay. And then I can just continue doing things as normal. Like, well, no, for 3 to 5 days, you're not supposed to lift something over 5 pounds. So you need to think about things before you just instinctually go to grab it or go to lift something. And, that just all goes under, I feel like, the category of when you're not used to the tests and procedures, there's all these little minute details that really make a difference as far as your recovery and can help you have a pretty smooth transition into the recovery. But that when you're not used to it, it's kind of like, wow, I'm getting all these facts and all this information at once. Like, how do I best process it? So, whether you're the patient looking towards your caregiver to help you out with it, or you're the caregiver over somebody, just remember to give each other grace. And, you're going to be processing things at different points during this journey that you're on. And you want to help each other through it, because that's only going to benefit you, especially as the patient, but as the caregiver, keep your sanity in the situation. Because as she got the biopsy and then they got the results, and let us know we would need to be seeing a surgeon, all the other stuff during the week, that stuff doesn't stop and pause. I mean, you have to get the appointments, and there's an urgency to get the appointments, but then there's a coordinating with the times of everything else you have. And that right there, I think, is just extremely overwhelming. So I digress from that topic, back to the fact of, after her biopsy, within about 4 days, we actually got the results. And they did tell us that, she'd need to see the surgeon. They got us in right away that week. And when we got in the office, it was really nice how it was a very smooth process from check-in to sitting in the exam room and them collecting all the necessarily like medical health information. And, when the surgeon came in, like, she brought this book that had a bunch of pictures and explanations of all the different kinds of breast cancer and treatments. And it was really nice that they provided that patient forward type vibe in that office. And the surgeon was explaining that, the type that came back for my mom, they call it DCIS, which is ductal carcinoma in situ, which pretty much means that it's stage 0, which was a huge blessing to find out, and that it wasn't considered invasive because it was contained in the milk duct itself. So in my mom's case, there were 2 different kinds of surgery treatment that they typically perform, and the surgeon went over all that. And then for myself, knowing that when you go for a second opinion, they want the actual pathology slides. And those can take a while because they actually send them to the hospital and they do their own pathology, exam over it. And, just that in itself, as a side note, I mean, that just shows how important second opinions are. The fact that from one hospital to another, they don't accept the pathology report, like they want it for themselves, I think speaks volumes. But anyway, so I asked the surgeon, like, how do we request those slides to go to another hospital? And at that point, I could tell that the doctor's tone changed. To me, she got a little bit more short with her answers and then kind of seemed to rush the appointment. And for me, I felt like, oh, great. Here's one of those doctors as my example. I've said in other videos about if their ego is too big and you just mention a second opinion and they get upset, that's your flag that that's not somebody that I personally would want to be working with. And we were done with the appointment, and the doctor explained that there were some follow-up tests that would need to be done before surgery, and any questions, and gave us some resources. And the experience itself overall was pretty decent. But as we got into the car, my mom turned to myself and dad and were like, hey, did you notice like the appointment was going really well, and then all of a sudden it felt like it turned and she got really cold? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it was after I started mentioning about needing things for a second opinion. And my mom was so quick to be like, well, how disappointing that she got upset by that. And I was like, well, it's better to know now than later. But yeah, especially when getting a cancer diagnosis, if you can help it, I would highly suggest a second opinion, just to make sure that the procedure and the surgery that the surgeon is discussing is something that aligns with what other people are doing out there, because procedures and surgeries, those can really differ between hospitals, and also depending on the doctor, like what their experience has shown them. So that's where I think it's helpful to just seek out that second opinion. So I asked her if she was okay with me calling and getting her in to see some other surgeons, and she agreed. So we went ahead and made appointments locally at Rush University in Chicago. And then, since a lot of my doctors are out in Cleveland, we discussed the possibility of going out there. And both of those hospitals were able to accommodate us with our appointments within a 2-week time frame. And the great part of what they do at Cleveland is they actually line it up so that you would see everybody on your care team within a day or a day and a half, because they know that, if you're traveling from out of town, you don't want to be there for a ton of time. So we were able to get those things in place. And I think that started kind of like calming things down, as far as like, hey, we know there's two different surgeries that the one surgeon suggested. Let's kind of see what Rush ends up telling us. And in the meantime, we found out that the two tests, one would be a DNA genetic testing to find out the likelihood of possibility of other cancers, and then also an MRI, just to make sure that the diagnostic mammogram picked up everything that was there, because the MRI is more detailed. And we found out that the genetic testing, we could get that done through any hospital, because they send it out as like a test kit, like one of those 23andMe sets. But when it came to the MRI, she could only have the MRI done at the hospital that was going to perform the surgery. So the good part of getting in to see the other two doctors within a 2-week time frame meant that by the end of the third one, she would know which hospital she wanted to move forward with, so we could go ahead and proceed to getting that MRI done. So what I ended up doing is, after making the appointments with the second opinions, we went ahead and scheduled future MRIs based on the fact of, we're not sure which doctor she's going to go with, but we're going to have one of those openings like secured already, so we don't waste more time. Because definitely something I've heard from other people, and I've read through some literature, discusses like how important it is to really move on stuff once it's diagnosed like that. So, and you hear the stories of people that waited 6 to 12 months before moving forward with surgery when it came to a cancer diagnosis. And from the first surgeon, we found out, they usually want that timetable within 60 days. So we definitely wanted to make sure that if we wanted to seek out other opinions, we could still get that all wrapped up in that 60-day kind of hold. So we saw the second surgeon the following week, and my mom really hit it off with her. She was very personable. She went ahead and explained everything just like the first surgeon and let us know that, the MRI could show more stuff, it might not, and that could then dictate which one of the two surgeries were an option anymore. So, in most cases of DCIS, when it's just in the milk duct, they can do something called a lumpectomy, and they just remove the area. They take a little bit of extra tissue around it, and they actually do the pathology while they're doing the surgery to make sure that they've scooped out enough of it. And currently, when it comes to patients getting a lumpectomy, there's anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks of radiation. That's typically the treatment for it. And the other type of surgery would be a mastectomy. And when you get a mastectomy done, the recovery time is longer, but they don't do radiation typically when you have a mastectomy for this kind of breast cancer. So it was good because we were able to at least know that, okay, 2 out of the 3 doctors said that these are the 2 options we have. And we still have to wait for the genetic testing to come back, and we still have to wait to do the MRI. But at least we can start doing research of these 2 types of surgeries and finding out what are some tips that'll help depending on which surgery she chooses. And so again, getting that second opinion was just reassuring that at least like we were on the right track and that we were able to gather that information so that in the future, when we get even more test results, that I feel confident that my mom's going to be able to make the best decision for her with the information that we have. And then, two, it was really nice that at these different hospitals, they all had some sort of wellness center or, cancer center they would call where they had a bunch of resources. So whether it was a nutritionalist, whether it was a physical therapist, whether it was someone religious to speak with, or a regular counselor to talk with, that those resources were available to people that were diagnosed so that they could just feel more empowered about all the things that were changing, in their body and in their life, and kind of, new things that might help them. So nutritionally or keeping physically active. And same thing with the mental health, speaking with somebody who's treated other patients with your similar condition, they definitely have a great perspective and could help you with how you're handling everything that's going on. So that was something, once we found out about those services, I was able to, in that following week, get her scheduled to see a nutritionalist and counselor just to, again, gather more information, because that just is not a negative thing. Like, as long as you're not being overwhelming with it, like for me, it's like, oh, I just want to like, get this test on and get that test on and like schedule everything and just, hurry up. Well, that's how I best handle it because of my experiences and, all that together. But that's not always the best way for everybody. So it was good that we were able to take a little bit of time in between the second and third opinion so that she was able to gather more resources and I think feel more secure with her new diagnosis that she was going to be dealing with. So next week, I know we're going to be going out to Cleveland and we're going to see those doctors. And then I believe we're going to be getting the results, hopefully, of the genetic testing. And then once she sees the third surgeon, I'm sure she'll make the decision on where she wants to have her surgery. And so we'll move forward with the MRI to just keep that ball rolling and try to get things done. So I hope that wasn't too much information at once, but also a good kind of summary of what we've been busy with the last 2 weeks. And again, if you have any comments or questions, drop them below. I will try to address them with the next video. And thanks you guys for tuning in. Have a great day.